but it's called There. The right people, the right place, and the right time. And today we're going to be looking at our there of the right place. Throughout our lives, we will find ourselves in different places. I'll be speaking both about physical places and spiritually, because our physical places, our physical affects our spiritual. So I'll be talking about both, and the Holy Spirit will reveal to you on where you need to apply this word. So there'll be times in our lifetime we're going to be in different places. We'll be in the highest points and in the lowest points. We'll be on the mountains, in the valley, in the middle of storms. We're going to be in different places. We will experience every part of the mountain, the hard journey up and the victory of reaching the top of the mountain, and also know the experience of the long walks in the lonely valleys and the crazy, fearful feeling that you have when you're in the middle of the storm. And we're going to experience all of that in our lifetime. But take courage knowing that it doesn't matter where you are. It doesn't matter where you're going. It doesn't matter in what place you are in. The Lord goes before us. There is no mountain high enough that God cannot reach us. There is no valley low enough where God cannot go and get us. There is no dark place enough where God cannot go and find us. Throughout life, we will be in different places. We must be cautious that either we're in the high place, in the low place, in the middle of the storm, or even in the deserts, that we keep our hearts focused on Jesus with the right attitude. Because then our heart will be aligned with God. And we can continue moving forward, going to the right place, going from glory to glory. The problem is when we get stuck in the right place. To be in the right place, it requires to have the right attitude and the right mentality. And that's what I want to be looking at today, that there's times that we can be in the right place, but we have the wrong mentality. We have the wrong attitude. Our heart is in the wrong place. So let's quickly open our Bibles to John chapter 5. And we're going to be looking at verses 1 through 9. I don't know if Pastor already touched on this story or not, because I actually haven't heard him for the last 2 Sundays. Last Sunday I was out of town. The previous one I had a twin sick, so I was trying to ask everybody, so what did Pastor preach about? What did Pastor preach about? And Pastor's just like, preach what's in your heart. So I'm like, okay, I don't know if this story has already been preached, but we're going to look at it again. And it's John chapter 5, verses 1 through 9. If you can say amen when you have it. After this, there was a feast of the Jews, and Jesus went up to Jerusalem. Now there is in Jerusalem by the sheep gate a pool, and this pool having 5 porches, the pool being called Bethesda. And in these lay a great multitude of sick people, blind, lame, paralyzed, waiting for the moving of the water. For an angel went down at a certain time into the pool and stirred up the water, and whoever stepped in first after the stirring of the water was made well of whatever disease he had. Now a certain man who was there who had an infirmity for 38 years. And when Jesus saw him laying there and knew he had already been in that condition a long time, he said to him, "Do you want to be made well?" The sick man answered him, "Sir, I have no man to put me into the pool when the water is stirred up, and while I'm coming, another steps down before me." Jesus said to him, "Rise up, take your bed, and walk." And immediately the man was made well, took up his bed, and walked. This is a story about a man in the right place, but with the wrong attitude, with the wrong mentality. His heart was in the wrong place. First, we see Jesus coming into Jerusalem. This is the first verse. Jesus coming into Jerusalem, but something very important. He came in through the sheep's gate. He came in through the sheep's gate. And I have this picture. Do you guys have the picture? Yeah. I have this picture, and up there at the top, you can see the sheep's gate. It's all the way up here, and that's the pool. So what it is like this side, because it says 5 porches. The north part is one, the bottom part is another porch, the sides is a porch, and the middle, it's like 2 lines together. It's the 5th porch. So it's 5 porches. That is the pool. And the sheep gate is all the way up there at the top. So the sheep gate is a small gate. It's a small gate, and it was used to bring the sheep in that were to be sacrificed in the temple. So the gate was not the main entrance. The gate was not the main entrance to Jerusalem. It was not the main entrance or one of the main entrances for anybody to enter. It was just for the shepherdmen to come in with their sheep. But Jesus walks in through that gate. And the Bible is very clear to tell us that he came in through the sheep gate. He came in through the sheep gate. And I believe this was Jesus making the statement of, I am the good shepherd. I have come to heal the broken and to find the lost sheep. By him entering, by him being the ultimate sacrifice for us. And Jesus entered. He could have gone anywhere else, but why did he go there? Because he was already declaring of who he was. He went straight to a place filled with sick people, blind, lame, paralyzed people. And now this pool was called Bethesda, which means house of mercy. House of mercy. And the verse 4 tells us that this pool, for an angel went down a certain time into the pool and stirred up the water, and whoever stepped in first after the stirring of water was made well of whatever disease he had. So there were sick people, there was blind people, there was paralyzed people in this house of mercy, seeking mercy from God over their condition. But let's pause right there, and can you imagine this place? These 5 porches filled of sick people. Can you imagine the smell? Just think a little bit. Can you imagine the smell? Can you imagine the atmosphere? Can you imagine their attitudes? Can you imagine their thoughts? If they were paralyzed, they had nothing to do but lay there and wait to go into the pool of water. If they were sick, I'm sure that how many of you have felt sick that you just don't feel good? And you're in bed all day or on the sofa and you just, can you imagine all of that is around you? They had nothing to do. They had no TV. They had no smartphones. They had no tablets, no internet. They're sitting there all day. Their minds, I can imagine their minds would just pace all day, going around and around and around and around with thoughts. I know I've been in that position of where I'm sick and I can't move, or I just had surgery and I couldn't move so much, and it's like you felt horrible. Now, can you imagine these people being there day in, day out, day in, day out? Recently, we just went to some conferences in Dallas, and one of the preachers said that experts say that we humans have anywhere from 60 to 80,000 thoughts a day. That's crazy, huh? 60,000 to 80,000 thoughts a day that we have. Don't start counting your thoughts, guys. And this preacher had us write down some of our thoughts. She gave us a few minutes and had us think on your thoughts. What have you thought down? What have you thought? And we started writing down, and my thoughts were, are the kids okay? Did the kids wake up? Are the kids this? Are the kids like? And it was worry. I was worried. And she starts asking, what are your thoughts? And people start saying fear, uncertainty, worry, anxiety. It was all negative thoughts. And now the scary part is that 80% are negative. 80% of our thoughts, of those 60 to 80,000 thoughts a day, 80% of those are negative. And 95% of those thoughts are repeated the next day. So now can you imagine these people, the thoughts that they had? And how slowly and slowly and slowly they were just not sick physically, but they were sick mentally and spiritually. I believe even though these people were in the right place, it like became their curse. because this group of broken people were holding each other down. Because that's how people in bondage or broken mentalities do. They crowd around with people in the same condition as them, and because it makes them feel good. And they pity each other and everyone else around. This man was in that same condition as him. Sick and broken. They couldn't lean on each other. They couldn't guide each other because they were competing against one another of who would get in the pool first. So they were not there to make friends. I believe they were more of like, they're my enemy, so I got to keep my enemy closer to make sure he doesn't beat me in that pool. Because whoever came first into that pool after the water was stirred would be healed. So they were not there making friends of like, come on, let's all go together in the pool. No, they were like, okay, you know what? He wants to get in the pool. I want it more. And they're competing against each other. They were competing against each other. Why didn't a sick person coming out of the pool healed wait around and help another sick person in the pool? Because their mentality was broken. Their heart wasn't in the right place. And especially, why didn't someone help this man that was there for 38 years? Verse 5 says, a certain man who had an infirmity for 38 years. Another version of the Bible says he was invalid for 38 years. Invalid. I was like, man, that sounds a little harsh. Invalid for 38 years. I can't even begin to imagine the things that this man went through his mind, racing in his mind every single day for 38 years. This man lost a long part of his life being invalid by this pool, being a prisoner of his own mind because he was there in the right place, in the right time for his need. Because I'm sure as soon as he got sick, he went there. He went to where he needed to receive. He went to the right place. But he got to the point where he was in the right place and he allowed his mind to hold him captive instead of receiving healing and freedom. The next verse says, Jesus saw and knew that he had been in that condition a long time and asked him, do you want to be made well? When I first was reading this, I was like, it seems kind of crazy. Why would Jesus ask him? You know, it was obvious he wanted to be well. But I was reading the verses as a human. Because he was by the pool seeking his healing. He was in the right place. So our observation with our human eyes and our human understanding would be like, Jesus, duh. He was in the right place. But you see, that's why Jesus is who he is. Because we see the physical, but Jesus saw his heart. He was in the right place, but he had the wrong attitude, the wrong mentality. His place was in the wrong heart. Jesus knew his heart, and this man's heart had given up a long time ago, and this affected his actions. I was thinking, oh my goodness, why didn't this man sit in the pool? I was talking with my husband yesterday, and my husband's like, why didn't he sit in the pool with his feet in the water? I'm like, that's all us thinking now of like, why didn't he do this? Why didn't he do that? Why was he idle? Why didn't he do something to better himself? It was like 38 years. I'm not even 38 yet, and he was there like my whole lifetime. I was like 38 years. I couldn't understand the actions of this man. But our situations today aren't any different than this man. We come to the right place seeking mercy and grace, seeking salvation, but we don't obtain it to the fullest. We sit idle in the right place. We become comfortable with the measure of faith that has been given to us instead of growing it, cultivating, and multiplying it. We don't do anything to become better, to move from glory to glory. We put excuses of why we can't better ourselves in God. Well, Jesus, it's the pastor's fault I'm not well. He wasn't there on Sunday. That's his fault. He had the co-pastor preaching up there like, it's his fault. It's the leader's fault that I'm like this. It's my family's fault that I'm like this. Jesus saw and knew our condition years ago. And that's exactly why Jesus went to the cross, to save us from being lost and idle in a place that was meant to move us forward. Verse 7 shows his excuses. It says, I have no man to put me into the pool when the water is stirred up. But while I'm coming, another steps down before me. The first excuse was a justification. He was defensive. He was putting himself of, oh, I'm alone. I have nobody. Poor me. Blah, 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 blah. I have a hard life. I can't. Excuses. He was trying to justify himself, and he was like being defensive. And the second excuse revealed the first excuse was a lie and non-sustainable. Because he said, but while I'm coming, another steps down before me. So which one is it? You can't do it alone, or you can do it alone. So which one is it? Which one is it? He was just full of excuses. He didn't take any kind of responsibility. He put it on everyone else. It's everyone else's fault that I don't get in the pool. It's everyone else's fault I don't receive my healing. It's everyone else's fault I have been here for 38 years. We cannot expect people to help us walk into our place of destiny when it's our destiny and not theirs to walk into. I'll let it hit you. We cannot expect people to help us walk in the place of our destiny when it's our destiny, not theirs to walk into. Because then we will glorify them instead of God. It's by God's grace and mercy that we will make it into our place of destiny. And this man's destiny was not to be by this pool of water his whole life. Yet he was so blinded by people around him, he was convinced that it was. He became comfortable in the right place, never seek to graduate or to move forward to another place. He didn't go in there and get what he needed and bounced out of there. He stayed there, he went to get what he needed. He couldn't obtain it and just said, oh, well, I got to sit here now. He became content and passive. This is what my life is going to be like. He became accustomed to his condition and place. Can you imagine if Jesus wouldn't have shown up that day, how many years more he would have spent there before he would have died? Because he surely couldn't have gotten himself out of there. His passion of seeking for healing had slowly died. He gave up. And he was in the right place without hope. We, the church, must recognize that we are in the right place, and we must continue to grow and push forward, growing in faith. And the last verse, I'm going to start finishing here. It says, verse 8 says, Jesus says, arise, take your bed and walk. Immediately the man was made well, took up his bed and walked. Jesus made a command to this man. He gave him a command to change his positions. He needed to change his position. He needed to rise up to change his perspective. When his perspective changed, his actions changed. He took up his bed this time. Because I can imagine many times before, he left his bed out while he tried to go to the pool. And he didn't get in the pool, so he came right back to his place. But this time, since his perspective changed, his actions changed, because this time he picked up his bed instead of leaving it out. When his actions changed, that he picked up his bed, his life changed because he walked. He was free to now continue to live his life. There are places that we will encounter our life that we were meant to be temporary, and some will be longer than others. This is something my husband and I experienced with God. 5 years ago, actually, 5 years ago, I worked at a storage facility, and I was the property manager. And we lived on site at the property, at the storage place. So they paid me to maintain the office. And on top of that, they gave us a free 2-bedroom, 2-bath apartment, no light bill, no water bill, no Wi-Fi bill. And on top of that, they still paid me. And when I received that job, we were praying for it. Man, it was a blessing. God opened the door. And while I was there working, doing my part, God continued to bless me with, if you have a job, you have a quota you got to meet each month, especially if you're like in sales and stuff. And I would go surpass my quotas. And it was like, man, this is God blessing me here in my job. And then it came to the time where my husband we opened the AC company. He opened the AC company, and then he decided to quit his job because we both had our jobs, and quit his job, but we were going to keep mine because we had the security of our apartment that they were giving us. He's like, yeah, I'll quit my job so we can start this company and like this and that, We're like, yeah, God gave us this company. We're going to start it. We're going to, but I wanted to keep my job. We wanted to keep my job, to have that security that, hey, we're going to be okay because we're going to have this income coming in. We had enough faith to start the AC company, but we didn't have enough faith to grow the company. Our current physical place was affecting our spiritual place. And God was like, oh no. You're content. You are trying to figure this out on your own. This is not the plan that I have for both of you to stay at this level. If I wouldn't have gotten fired, I got fired. We would have stayed there. And that time in our lives, I was pregnant of Junior, so it was 5 years ago. I was feeling horrible. I was feeling horrible because they fired me for something that wasn't even true, that I stole money. And I think that's what hurt me even more, because I was like, God, how could you allow them to say that about me? And everything was going good. How could you allow this? How could you? But now, I'm like, God, if you wouldn't have fired me, you were trying to get us out of there. And you had to move me. That was the only thing that was going to move me, because I wasn't going to give up my job. So he had to remove me. And if I wouldn't have gotten fired and we would have stayed there, right now we wouldn't have been homeowners, because that was one of our dreams, to be a homeowner. But if we were staying there, we're going to be like, why? We're comfortable. We don't have a monthly rent bill or house bill. But we wouldn't be homeowners right now. I wouldn't have been in school pursuing my calling or my passion of growing more in God, because my mentality would have been in the same state. But since God stepped in, intervened, and changed everything, moved us, literally moved us, I can look back and give thanks to God for showing up and moving us. We were in the right place, but the time was over for that place. And God wanted us to move into a new place of growing our faith in him. At times, we can get stuck in places where our time has been long overdue. But since we like the comfort, we don't make an effort to move or change. This man's time in this place was way overdue. 38 years. That was way, way overdue. When we get caught up in our own plans, in our own thoughts and emotions, we can get lost and lose sight of life. This man's time was overdue. He had lost hope. He had lost sight of life. He looked around and thought this is where he was supposed to be. Let us not stay in the place longer than we have to. Move from your comfort place that we are in right now and not lose sight of life that God has planned for us. And we better move before God comes in and moves us. And I can tell you that. You better move before God comes in and moves you. The first encounter this man had with Jesus was setting him free. And the word says that this man didn't even know who Jesus was. And in that first encounter, Jesus gave him a command to rise up, pick up his bed, and walk, to move into a new place in his life. And then the second encounter, oh, sorry, I didn't read the verse. Verse 14, and this is where I'll really start finishing. I've gotten those bad habits from Pastor. Okay, now verse 14. Afterwards, Jesus found him at the temple. See, you have been made well. Sin no more, lest the worst thing come upon you. So the first encounter this man had with Jesus, Jesus was setting him free. He didn't even know who Jesus was. And in the first encounter, Jesus gave him a command. Rise up, pick up your bed, and walk. Walk and move into a new place in his life. And then the next encounter this man had with Jesus was in the temple, face to face, getting acquainted with his healer, Jesus. And in the second encounter, Jesus gave him directions on how to live in the new place. He said, sin no more. Sin no more. And you're probably thinking, the man was sick by the pool. He couldn't move. What was he sinning? He was sinning with his mind. He was sinning with his heart because he lost hope a long time ago. His thoughts became a fear of I can't even imagine, of just giving up, of losing hope. He was sinning. And God told him, when you move into this new place, Jesus told him, you now sin no more. You're in a new place, sin no more. Release those thoughts, renew your mind. Renew your mind. What does Romans tell us? Renew your mind. That's exactly why we must renew our mind. We cannot carry our old thoughts with us when God is taking us into a new place. We cannot carry the old man with us when God has created us new. We cannot carry the old with us. We have to leave the old behind. We go into a new place. We cannot carry the old habits, the old thoughts with us into the new place. Because in every place you go, Jesus will be there to have an encounter with you. And every encounter will be deeper than the previous one. The first encounter this man had with Jesus was him setting him free, and he didn't even know who Jesus was. He didn't even know who Jesus was. And it's in the second encounter where he finds out who Jesus was. He moved deeper into his knowledge of who that man was, that saved him from that condition, that rescued him from that condition, that had mercy and grace and compassion over this man in that condition. He knew now deeper of who Jesus was. If I wouldn't have moved, if God wouldn't have moved us from the storage place, our level of faith wouldn't have grown. Our level of faith wouldn't have grown because everything was being handed to us. Now we have to pray, God, give us work because I'm not working and it's only the AC company. And it's like, God, open doors of opportunity, open doors, Father God, for somebody's AC to break down. No, I'm just playing. You know, God, open doors, God, provide. You're probably like, man, that's why my AC. No, Sister Ollie, that's not why your AC broke down. But think about the place that you're in right now. Are you traveling up that mountain or are you in the valley? I personally know that my place right now is a time of building and learning. It's a place of stillness because I'm learning, I'm growing in God. What is your attitude and perspective in the place that you're in right now? Have you become passive? Have you become too comfortable? Throughout life, we will be in different places. And always remember that every place has a certain time. Some longer than others, but trust me, it's not 38 years. Don't cheat yourself out of time wasted in the wrong place. And we can be in the right place and have the wrong mentality as this man had. becoming comfortable and accustomed to that place. And because God is a God that takes us from glory to glory, takes us higher and higher. So to every place he moves us to, it's good to grow closer in him, to him. If God wouldn't have moved us, we wouldn't have learned to rely on him as our provider. We wouldn't have learned of how to get on our knees and God, please provide. God, please open doors. God, you gave us this company. Open it, bless it, Father God. And now our prayer has been, right? God, bless us so we can be a blessing to others. My husband's dream is that he wants to have his brothers working for him. That's his dream. He's like, I want to be busy enough to give all my brothers a job. But that wouldn't have been possible if we would have stayed in our same place. If God wouldn't have allowed me to be fired, we would have stayed content. Maybe God has been nudging you to apply for that promotion, to move on higher in your education, to write that book, to start that blog, to start an outreach, to maybe start your own business. Right now, the place that I'm in it's being a stay-at-home mom pursuing higher education for ministry. And if I would have stayed in my old place, in my previous place, it was just a storage manager. That was it. And now because God moved me and I'm becoming closer to him, I'm pursuing higher education for ministry. And how I'm active in my current place. I haven't become comfortable and I haven't become passive. God is slowly setting me up for my next place. I have now a clear picture of my calling, and now I got to change my major completely, but I have a clear understanding of where God is going to take me to the next place. God is setting me up. And I don't know what my next place is at, but wherever God takes me, I know that it's to grow deeper in him and that he's already gone before me. Every place that we will go through will have a purpose. Let's not lose sight of our purpose. I invite you to stand to your feet this morning.